Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about the novel Their Eyes Were Watching God, written by Zora Neale Hurston. Now, this novel is very interesting to me because it really looks at how African American women identify themselves. This is specific to the 1900s. This novel was written in 1937, so I found that it was very interesting the way in which this character by the name of Janie figures out who she is and how she comes to identify herself within this novel. So this novel begins with Janie, of course, and when this novel begins, she's a teenager and she's starting to discover herself, starting to identify herself. And her grandmother is a woman, she's a very strong woman, and she's basically been raising Janie. Now, there's a history of rape in the family, and the grandmother has been protecting Janie. She has been doing all she can to raise Janie to be a wonderful individual, a wonderful woman. The story is that Janie's mother was raped, and basically after she gave birth to Janie, she just disappeared and left Janie in the care of the grandmother. So for Janie's entire life, the grandmother has been taking care of Janie, and she's been doing all that she can to keep Janie out of trouble. And in the beginning of the novel, what we find is that the grandmother gets upset because she finds Janie kissing a boy underneath a pear tree, and the grandmother comes to the idea that I'm gonna have to make you get married because if you're exploring yourself now, I don't want you to end up with some sort of other black guy, in the vicinity. I would much rather want you to end up with someone who has an established livelihood so that you can be happy. And Janie's not really happy about this because the grandmother ends up making her getting married to Mr. Logan Killix. Now, Mr. Logan Killix, he's old. He's not at all in Janie's age range. Of course, she's 16 years old. Killix is an old man basically, and it's just not what she wants because one of the things that define Janie within this novel is that she wants to find true love. She wants to find the right person for her. And her grandmother really just, pours water on the fire and she says, you're going to do what I want to do. You're going to do what I say. So, right off the bat, the grandmother makes Janie get married to Mr. Killix. Now, Janie is not happy when she goes to Mr. Killick's house and they're married. She is not happy because he basically wants to be in control of her. And that's not what Janie wants. She wants to be independent, of course. And I think that says a lot about women. Women have always been fighting for their own independence to be in control, in charge of themselves. 1800s, 1900s, we always talk about equality, racism, and things such as that. But I think another thing that should be looked at, another thing that should be talked about as much as inequality and racism is the fact that of how women have always been fighting for their independence, how women have always been fighting to be in charge of themselves as men are. And I think that sometimes we forget about that. But I think that this book really shines a light on this matter because at every part of the novel, you kind of see Janie pushing back against the tides and she's trying to find herself and trying to find what she wants. And she's not going to be pushed down or be oppressed. She's going to fight for what she wants. So, Janie stays with Mr. Killix for a while. She's not happy, and he's very in control, very oppressive. And while she's in his house, he's making her do all sorts of things, all sorts of chores. And Janie's not really having a happy marriage. And, into the picture comes this man by the name of Jody Starks. And Jody, he's a different man. He's established just like Mr. Killix, but he's a little bit younger, and he's like, I like you. He's like to Janie, he's like, I like who you are, so maybe you should leave Mr. Killix and become my wife. And that's exactly what happened. So Janie leaves Mr. Killix. She just gets up and leaves. And it's kind of funny because when she leaves, she had this apron and she kind of just like threw it in the bushes, and she just walks out of the house. She walks out of Mr. Killick's house and just follows Jody Starks, and they go to this new town, to this new living place, living arrangement, whatever you want to call it, and they start their new lives. The specific place that they go is it's called Edenville, and Edenville is Jody Starks. He's the mayor there. He's a man of power. He's a man of possession. He's a man of, he's respected. He's highly respected. He's the mayor. He's like, a black mayor, and that's really not common. So Jody is very proud of himself. He's very arrogant, and he's very, I would say, he's adamant. He's very strong-headed, and this is where the split between him and Janie starts to form, because right when they get married and they're living together, um, Jody is an old man. He's not old as Mr. Killix, but he's older than Janie, and he's trying to hide the fact that he's getting old. Janie ends up living with with Jody for a long time, for 20 years. And during this time, she gets older. She's not 16 anymore. She becomes an adult, and she's married to Jody. She spends a lot of time with him, but she's not happy because Jody is really treating her like property. Jody is telling her what to wear, what to do, what to eat, what to think, what to, everything that, normal people would do and think for themselves. Jody is telling Janie what to do, and she doesn't like that. No one wants to be controlled. No one wants to be told what to think 24/7. And so she's not happy. And later, what happens is within their marriage, during the latter part of their marriage, um, Jody's starting to get old. He's getting very old, and his body is failing. His gut is falling. He's becoming an old man, just like people become old. That's a normal part of life, and he doesn't want people to recognize that. So what he does is he's calling Janie old. He's saying that, oh, nobody is ever gonna want you. Nobody ever is gonna see the value in you. You're worthless. And Jody is repeatedly telling Janie that she's not good enough. She's not good enough. And at the same time, he's even worse off. So by this time, Janie's like 40. She's 40 years old, but he is way older than that. And, his body is failing him. And so one day, Janie has enough. And she tells him that, you're not what you think you are. Your body is frankly disgusting. So if you're going to tell me that I'm not good enough, you're not good enough. And that literally destroys Jody. And everybody in the town who looked up to Jody as this champion, they hear, because this town is, there's a lot of gossip that goes on in this town. There's a lot of people talking behind people's backs, backstabbing. So this confrontation between Jody and Jane, it kind of spills out, and everybody heard what um, what Janie said to Jody, and it's really interesting because you know it's this balance of power that switches, because Jody had all the power, Jody had all the strength, and Janie is taking that away from him. So what happens is Jody dies, right? After Janie tells him off, after Janie stands up to him, he dies. Of course, he was old, his body was failing, and I think that Janie's revolt was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And you know, his body was failing, but his mind was still trying to trud forward. And what Jenny said to him really pushed him off the edge. And what happens is his kidneys stop working, his kidneys fail, and he ends up dying because of course you can't live without your kidneys. And Janie inherits all of his wealth. Janie inherits all of the things that he had. Janie takes his store, his property, his money. So she ends up being really, extremely wealthy. She ends up being extremely not powerful, as if she has power over people, but it's much better because now she's independent. Now she can tell herself she can be who she is when she wants to be. So Janie is independent. You know, Killix is not in her life, and now Jody is not in her life, and she's having a pretty happy life because now she's independent and now she's in control. And what happens now? She's happy because she's independent. She's happy because she's by herself, but she's still looking for her true love. She's still looking for her happiness, right? And what happens is this new person comes in town by the name of Tea Cake. Tea Cake stumbles on Janie's path, and he's like, I like you. He's like, he's different. He's not like Mr. Killix who wants to possess her because he has money. He's not like he's not like Jody that wants to possess her because he has power. Tea Cake just wants her because he likes her. And Tea Cake is coming to Janie. He's singing songs to her. He's playing his guitar. He's taking her out. He's making her getting involved in his life. And he's not controlling her. He's not telling her what to do. He's not trying to get her money. He's not trying to get anything from her. He actually likes her as a person. He actually likes her as an individual. And this is new to Janie, and she's never had someone invested in her in such a manner. And so what happens is they get married, and they're extremely happy. But this happiness doesn't last long because eventually this tornado hits their home, and Tea Cake ends up getting bit by a rabid dog. He gets rabies, and he gets sick, and he ends up biting Janie, and Janie ends up shooting him and killing him. And that's really what happens in the novel. It's quite interesting the developments that take place. You have Janie, this individual. You see her growth. At 16, she gets married to Mr. Killix. She's not happy. She doesn't know anything about marriage. And then she just runs away with this guy by the name of Jody. Now, Jody's even worse because he literally makes fun of her and mocks her. Then he dies, and then Tea Cake, her one true love, the one person that she felt close to, he ends up dying, and she had to kill him because he had rabies, and if she didn't kill him, he would have killed her. So it's really sad, but at the same time, I think that this novel is very powerful because Janie was not passive. Society often teach women to be passive and to accept what they've been given, but Janie was never in that category. She always fought for what she wanted, no matter what husband tried to take control of her. They always end up dead, which is quite convenient for her. Now, the ending of this novel kind of leaves us kind of on a cliff. Yes and no, I have to say. It kind of does, it kind of doesn't. Janie did get bit by Tea Cake before he died. Now, the book doesn't tell us if she gets the serum to cure her. It was too late for Tea Cake to get the serum. He was too far along the process to be cured. But Janie, you know, she got bitten from tea cake, and the book doesn't really tell us that she got the serum to cure her. But I think that the way that the novel ends, kind of suggests that she might be okay and she might not be okay. We don't really know. The other thing that's important within this novel, after Janie did kill Tea Cake, they actually the officers, or the law, they put her on trial. They arrested her. They put her on trial. Everybody in the town, because Tea Cake was loved by a lot of people. They thought Janie had killed Tea Cake, but she explained that it was rabies. He was going to attack her, and there was a doctor that examined Tea Cake before Janie had to kill him, and he testified and said, she didn't kill him because she wanted to kill him. She killed him because she had to kill him to save herself. And really, that's how the novel ends. It's kind of sad that Janie had to first kill her true love and then had to stand on trial for it. That's really sad. That's really unfortunate. Um, but that's life. Sometimes life, things are not given fairly. Sometimes you have to kill your husband in the morning, and then at night you have to go to trial for killing your husband, who was basically already dead and who had rabies. Um, So the last scene of the novel, we just see Janie going up. She's in her house. She's alone. She's alone again by herself. Um, it's not a happy ending. She had to kill Tea Cake, and she basically goes back into her house. And the last thing we I guess the last we see of her, she's just in her bedroom, and she's kind of thinking about Tea Cake. So I think this is a great novel because it, even though it ends in a sad ending, I think it says a lot about women being who they want to be and not being controlled by men. And Janie is a woman; she's strong, and in the end, you know, with a little bit of luck or you know ingenuity, she ends up being able to take care of herself, and that's something that's quite interesting. 1937, women weren't expected to take care of themselves. It was literally you leave your home, your parents give you up to your husband, and your parents take care of you your first part of your life, and your husband take cares of you the last part of your life. And that's kind of what Jane's life was like too. Um, but in the end, she does gain independence to do what she wanted to do when she wanted to do it. And that's very interesting. I think that's very different from other novels. And I think this novel, especially for African Americans, this is a novel that should be read along with other novels such as The Bluest Eye and Sula by Toni Morrison. There's a number of great novels that I think a lot of African Americans should read because I think they say a lot about the development of the African American people in America, and Uncle Tom's Cabin says a lot about male African American males developing in America, and books such as Their Eyes Were Watching God really says a lot about female development, and so does Sula and The Bluest Eye. So that's the summary for this, guys. Thank you for watching. In the comments, say something, whatever you want to say. Leave a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you next time for another video.